Good morning. Welcome to another day of Bible prophecy. My name is Prophet C. Brazil. I'm a messenger sent by God to prepare the way for the return of Jesus Christ. The last recording that I created, I was talking about what's going on in Hades. This is a part of Bible prophecy which was spoken of by God the Father. And I've been out on the road a long time, as people might say, trying to get the message across. I got my calling in 1993 and extended to 1995 is when I was caught up between the earth and the sun. And God spoke to me and told me to write His gospel. This was long before President George W. Bush had become president, but George H.W. Bush had not long came out of Iraq, which Iraq is part of the Bible prophecy, which you will see behind in the decal behind me. Well, as God had called me, as I refused my calling in the beginning, and I'm gonna make this short, God tore my hedges around me. But little did I know, and turned my hedges around me, and I went through many trials and tribulations. This became a fulfillment of a prophecy spoken of by Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, in Isaiah 6:1-3. And at the first part where I went to the cross and where I was slain, but it's decoded in symbols there, and one have to have the wisdom from God in order to understand this. This is what I explained in the early part of my recording through all these recordings that I have placed out here on YouTube. I stated these things and reveal how these things came to be and how I got my calling, and it was long before President George W. Bush. I created symbols the same like manner. But when you're an unknown, people's not gonna look at that part and see how did you get your call, and they will just say, well, he's just a man out there, or just saying God spoke to him. How do he know? Well, the people take their time and go back to the beginning of all of these recordings, which I got so many of them out there now, and follow the path and the pattern of every last one up until now, you will see that I spoke these things in the beginning when I started 2 months ago. Well, what did I say this? You take the Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana. You take Hades. You take the entire world. God have spoke over and over again in plain English or whatever language they understood. God spoke to them in their tongue concerning the matter at hand before it even arrived there. There's no doubt about it. God is no secret God. God has His way revealing these things long before they even happen. This is the works of God. But because of we are so bogged down in our own ignorance, we deceive ourselves. But God is not a God of surprises. He talked about the earthquake in that place there, but you didn't know it because you have not looked, you turned your head. But when these things come upon us, we goes in a rage, in a panic. It's the same thing is going to happen to the rest of the world. He sent the messages, He sent the prophets, and people don't listen to the true prophet. They would pay thousands and thousands of dollars for somebody to tell them a lie rather than to hear the truth for free. This is the way it is. But when the tribulations come upon us and we become the victim of the circumstance, which is the tides of life, then we go cry out to God and we'll pin down and say this here was something, an evolutionary chain of events by the plate slipping on the earth, and had been insulting God, and God told you these. God have told you, to us these things was going to happen in the beginning. So how can we say we go to the word of the scientist? He's giving you a high tech mindset, and you believe in that delusion, in this lie, and you never change. But when you reach to him so long, and he gonna give you so much of his food and his water, and since he don't know how to make food and water, he gonna cut it off so we don't have enough of my people in case we have a national disaster. Well, you say you know all about the earth, then how come you? Why do you say ill? Why don't you know what day it come? Nobody knows what day it was gonna come there to Hades. Nobody knows the hurricane. They watched the hurricane sit out there in the ocean, in the Gulf, many days, and they decided it had a mind of its own, and then came ashore. So you don't know. And it took, even though they stood and watched it, it still became a thief and took so many lives, even though they had stood there and watched it, wondering what it was going to do. Well, I decided I'm going to go back to Isaiah, show you where I got my calling here. One more for a time, since there are so many people have not heard the true gospel, because it has something to do with where we are today. Go to Isaiah 6, chapter 6. Chapter 6, and I'm going to stop at the part where we was crucified together. We was all connected onto one body. John the Baptist, Jesus Christ, and myself. I live by the Spirit of Moses. And the other part was what had transpired in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, which fulfilled that part of Isaiah. Chapter 6, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the serpents. Each one had 6 wings. With twine he covered his face, and with twine he covered his feet, and with twine he did fly. And one cried unto another, and said, Holy, holy, holy. There was 3 holies. Then you don't know there was 3 individuals attached on to the other one, was coming to be born. 3 spirits to be, but only one had the authority to bear the burden of the life. And the Lord of hosts is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is filled full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a peoples of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. That was myself, making me part of the covenant, making me a part of the attachment. These records is still binding, and you can find those records in Pine Bluff, where somebody firebombed my house between the doorposts. I said that I was caught up between the earth and the sun because I had transgressed against God, and he spoke to me. I saw him sitting in the center of the sun, and I told what he looked like and found out it was the same as the other prophets had seen. And he told me to write his gospel. I seen devastation when I came back, descended back. I seen people dead everywhere in the United States of America. I must say it, and I'll say it again. But when I look at what's happening in Hades, and this is the ordained thing, this is just a mirror God trying to let us look into, that we might understand the significance of all those people I've seen dead laying out there as I was descending back down from God, when he showed me all these people was laying in America dead, and I didn't know the significance of it all. Well, some said, well, this Hades ain't there. you believing in